I love a couple of points, Clements, that you made, and that I think are worth repeating. You talked about democracy, and what this club stands for, and what's happening in Ukraine today is it's about democracy versus autocracy. This is not just about Ukraine. This is about democracy versus autocracy. I know I have friends, German friends, but also American friends that go, "Oh, Ukraine, it's so corrupt, it's..." Okay, it's not perfect, but it's only been a democracy for 30 years. And nobody questioned President Zelensky's, was he elected or not. I mean, it's amazing when you think of the centuries of Ukraine's history that in less than 30 years, they've already had 2 or 3 elections, and they are on a path, an imperfect path, but they are on a path to being a vibrant, liberal, democratic country. The United States has been a democracy for almost 250 years. We have some issues. So I think people could be a little bit more patient with our Ukrainian friends and in their fight to become a democracy. And to be honest, for the past several months, many of my good friends in Germany as well as in the U.S. and other countries are like, come on, Crimea, that was always part of Russia. No, it's not. Ukraine, we have to understand the Russian perspective. They're scared of NATO. No, absolutely not. The safest part of Russia is the part that touches NATO. That's the one place where I would guarantee from which they would never be invaded. I will promise you tonight, Lithuania will never invade Russia. All right? Estonia will never invade Russia. I will guarantee it. And if we need to, we can have a big ceremony and everybody signs it. I swear, Portugal will never invade Russia. Okay? They may want to, but they never will. And so this whole Geschichte that somehow Putin was justified with what he's doing because NATO moved too far, too fast, is a complete, total fairy tale. What Putin worried about is Ukraine joining the EU, Ukraine becoming like Lithuania, Ukraine becoming like Estonia. That's what he was worried about, because then he would have to explain to his population why life in Ukraine is so much better than it is inside Russia, because young people would have the chance to live up to their potential. People would have a chance to make their own choices. That's what this is about. This is about democracy versus autocracy. And only in Ukraine did somebody die with the EU flag in their hand. Nowhere else. So, I mean, they fought because they want to be like you. They want to have what you have. It's not perfect. Of course they have oligarchs. Of course there's corruption there, for sure. And people there are under the influence of money from Russian gas and you name it. But for me, this is about democracy versus autocracy. And in the beginning of the Second World War, President Roosevelt famously said, "We, the United States, are the arsenal of democracy," meaning even though the United States was not yet in the war, we're going to do whatever it takes to help democracy defeat fascism. That was what the United States stood for back then. It's not quite that simple, but I mean, that's what it was about. And that's what this is about now. And Germany has a critical role to play in this battle of democracy versus autocracy. Germany is the most important ally for the United States. Not always our favorite, not always the friendliest, but always the most important. And I have some people say, "Oh, what about UK?" I say, "Yeah, that's special. Germany is important." There's a difference. Of course our alliance with the UK is important. Centuries of history. But more Americans claim German ancestry than anything else. Not Italian, not Irish, except one day out of the year. Everybody's Irish. Not Spanish, not Asian. It's German. And so I think this is why President Biden, from the day he became the president, he went to work to repair the damage from the last 4 years, to make sure that we had a relationship with our German ally. He took some significant political risks to do that, of course. And so, as President Gauck once said just a few years ago, that friends have higher expectations of friends. You can be sure President Biden has very high expectations of the German Federal Republic. And so, obviously, everybody in America that cares about this sort of stuff was pleased to hear Chancellor Scholz's very courageous and clear statement a few weeks ago about Germany's decision, his decision for Germany to invest in its own security so that it can contribute to the gesamte europäische Friedensordnung. Germany, that's hard for an American to say all of that in one thing, but I think German leadership realized that all of the moral authority you had accumulated, you had earned over the last 75 years as the champion of European values was evaporating. I mean, it was going to be gone if Germany did not do something to actually protect those values. You can't shake your finger at Poland and Hungary and other countries if you're not willing to defend those values yourself. And so I think just in time, Germany looks like it's going to actually do that. And there's nobody scared of a German Bundeswehr that gets larger. I think Radek Sikorski, he famously said that they are more worried about a weak Germany than they are a strong Germany. It's important. Okay, so I want to take just a few minutes to talk about a little bit about what's going on and why this matters to us. This week, of course, Chancellor Scholz, President Biden, all the heads of state and government from NATO, the European Council, and the G7 will meet in Brussels, I think, on Thursday. They're going to talk about what's happening in Russia, about what our response should be, about the sanctions, but also I imagine and I hope they will talk a little bit about, and then what? What happens after this? I mean, already more than 3.5 million Ukrainians have left Ukraine. Most of them are in Poland right now, but not only. 500,000 are in Romania. Obviously, you have a lot of them here in Germany already. 7 million Ukrainians are on the move. I mean, they've been displaced from their homes. They may stay in Western Ukraine or they may keep moving. So we're looking at probably, I would bet, 5 to 7 million Ukrainian refugees will be inside the EU. So even though the EU may not invite Ukraine to join immediately, the EU is going to move to Ukraine. You'll have to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have 5, 6, 7 million refugees continuing to live all around Europe until they have a place to go back to. Plus, I'm sure you know, Ukraine feeds millions of people in Africa, in the Middle East. Even China depends on grain that comes from Ukraine. That's not going to happen. Probably not this year. I mean, it will be a significant problem for providing food for millions of people in already the poorest parts of the world. So this is going to be hard. And so the EU, I imagine, the United States, Canada, others will figure out a way to step forward to try and help fill that gap. But that's going to be a real challenge. And we know from history that food problems usually lead to instability as people get very unhappy with their government. And so there's a ripple effect. So my point is, this is about more than just Ukraine. This is going to affect all of us. And our friends in Beijing, of course, they're watching. And they're waiting to see, can the United States, with all of its allies, with all of our combined diplomatic power, economic power, and military power, if we cannot stop Vladimir Putin from destroying Ukraine, then I don't think they're going to be too concerned or impressed with anything that we say about Taiwan or South China Sea or anything else. We're already behind. We did zero after they smashed Hong Kong. We did zero. I mean, even the UK did zero. So This is an important time for that. Now, let me say up front, I am an optimist. I'm an optimist by nature, but I'm also a professional soldier, yes, I day. I believe that when the smoke clears, Ukraine is going to win. I mean, they'll win, not just survive, they're going to win. This week, next week, I think are the most decisive parts of the campaign. I think everybody in here watches the news all the time. You're paying attention to what's happening. Clausewitz has a concept called the culminating point, that when an attacking force reaches the point where they no longer have the momentum, they don't have the people, the resistance, the defender is too strong, or they run out of resources, ammunition, fuel, whatever, then the attack goes like that. So they've culminated. I believe, in my assessment, Russia is going to culminate within the next 5 to 7 days. It won't be at one time. It won't be like at the end of a football game, okay, that's it. But I think that the leadership in the Kremlin already knows it. That's why they've asked China for help. That's why they've asked Syria to provide soldiers. They have very serious manpower problems. In addition to not having enough troops to do what they need to do now, the ones that they have have morale problems. You have people walking away, leaving their equipment. A lot of them are conscripts, Wehrpflicht, that did not even know they were going to Ukraine. So it's a bad personnel situation for the Russians right now. And I think the general staff knows this, and this is not something they can sustain. They have logistical problems, which the whole world is watched and seen, where, convoys, trucks, things that you cannot get fuel. They need 200 fuel trucks every day. I'm talking about the kind with 20,000 liter trucks, like you see that brings fuel to the Tankstelle around here. They need 200 of those every day. And there's no way they have that. And of course, Ukrainians are going after those trucks. So you destroy those fuel trucks, then the tanks can't move anywhere. But what we're also seeing is the result of decades of corruption inside the Russian Ministry of Defense, corruption in the Russian military, corruption inside the defense industry. The number that we all thought of total Russian troops, Army, Navy, Air Force, 900,000. That's a lot. I would bet you a lot of money that they don't even have 600,000. That probably 1/3 are what we would call ghost soldiers, because a commander would be given money to pay all his soldiers. And so they give false numbers, okay? And so this number 900,000 is hollow. I doubt they could find 600,000 warm bodies. And you could be sure that those 600,000 are not quite going to be, Grenadier Guards type quality. And I blame myself a little bit. I was guilty of overestimating the Russian forces' capability. I knew that they were spending a lot of money on modernization, but having new airplanes, new tanks, new ships does not equal having quality military. So as Germany thinks about how do you spend this 100 billion euro, milliarden, it's not just about the stuff. It's about the woman and the man that's in the stuff. And it's about the quality of the training that they do. Can they do the task? So the equipment is only a part of it. And it's very apparent that not only has there been corruption, but what I missed was that they had no experience. I mean, in my mind, okay, they did Georgia, didn't do very well, learned a lot from that, then went to Syria. They've been fighting in Syria for years, even a little bit in Africa. Then, of course, they invaded Crimea in 2014, supported the separatists in Donbass. We don't hear about separatists anymore. That was another fairy tale. But, you know, we, especially Germany, France, were willing to believe the fairy tale. But it turns out that most of the fighting was done by 10% of the army. The airborne, the special forces, and the Wagner group, the mercenaries. So 90% of the military had no experience, no real experience. And so then when you try to do an operation in Ukraine like we're watching, you see all the problems. It is very difficult to coordinate air, sea, land, special forces, cyber, to make it all work together. It is very hard, even in perfect conditions. We practice it all the time. And their lack of experience, which I missed, has been very apparent. You know, there are 6 Russian generals so far that we know about. 6 Russian generals have been killed in combat. That's a fairly high number. I mean, in modern warfare, that's a pretty high number. Why is that? Because most of them have been talking on their cell phone. And at first I was like, when I saw President Zelensky on day 5 on his cell phone, inspiring his own country, inspiring the whole world. I mean, I got motivated when I saw that. Then I went, wait a minute, how in the hell is he able to talk on a cell phone after 5 days of war? The Russians did not, I mean, we would have shut down that in the first hour to make sure that nobody could communicate, right? So day 5, the president is still on the phone? Kind of design. And then what we discovered, and Alex actually was the first to uncover it, the Russians don't have the ability to take their own network with them, which every modern army has. You take your own network. I mean, when we went to Iraq, we didn't use Vodafone. We had our own network, right? The Russians didn't have that. And so they did not destroy the network because they needed it themselves. So now you've got Russian division commander up in the front with his troops, and he's talking on the phone. It is not too hard to intercept and geolocate where that phone is. And go, well, that's the commander of the 41st Guards Division. And that's how they're killing these guys. This is an example of the lack of professionalism and discipline. Yeah. It's not about courage. They are not prepared for what they were sent in to do. But I think there also was some arrogance. Like, we'll just use the Ukrainian network and we'll talk on our cell phone, and they're paying the price. And also the Russian style, the tradition of what we call command and control is very, very centralized. So it's the opposite of the Auftragstechnik. It's one person makes all the decisions. And so when there's a problem, then that person has to move to the front to figure out what the hell's going on. And so they're even more exposed. Interestingly, the Ukrainians, who came from the same tradition, but over the last 20 years, they were able to move away from that. And so the Ukrainians that are fighting actually are in a very distributed way. I mean, all these towns and cities, Kharkiv, Mariupol, Kherson, Mykolaiv, all around Kyiv, those are mayors, like little Zelenskys everywhere. It's incredible what they're doing. It's not somebody in a bunker in Kyiv saying, okay, do this, do this. This is happening out there. So it really is showing the difference in approach. Okay. Noch eine Stunde. So what do we do? I mean, what do we do from here? What would I want you to do when you leave here tonight and think, okay, 1 or 2 things were worth hearing? On 1 April, 130,000 Russian families have to send their son to Wehrpflicht, to be conscripts. 130,000. It's the next scheduled normal induction of new conscripts. Can you imagine if we were able to reach those 130,000 families and other people inside Russia and say, don't send your son to become Kanonenfutter as a private in the Russian army fighting against fellow Slavs in a war where the Russians are murdering thousands of innocent Ukrainian men and women. Don't send him. If only 10 or 15% said, my son's not going, that would be an incredible shockwave, I think, across Russian society. And that would give courage to those thousands we have already seen that have been out protesting, knowing that Russian police were going to crack heads, but yet thousands of people have gone out. So if we could reach those 130,000, that could make a difference. I am asked, like, okay, clearly the Ukrainians are about to turn the tide. Russians are getting desperate. They've transitioned from a mobile war to this awful war of attrition where they are smashing cities like medieval, Middle Ages type warfare, which is their tradition. How do we stop this? Well, one of the solutions has got to be an organic solution from inside Russia. I think the people that sit at the table with or at the end of the table from President Putin, they're thinking. I mean, they're not stupid. I mean, they survived to get to that level. They can see what's happening. They can see there are zero positive outcomes for Russia at this point. There's nothing good that's going to happen. I mean, they're going to be ruined for a very long time. And so they're thinking, all right, Putin's not going to be here forever. When this is over, where do I want to be? And I have to believe. I've had so many Germans tell me, come on, you have to understand the Russians, you know, they have their concern, and these are very smart, good people. Okay, we'll find out. You know, they have a chance to influence what's going to happen here. And so I think it's our duty to try and reach them. I mean, half of Ukraine has family or friends or contacts or business partners that are Russian. Norway, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Georgia, Poland, everybody has Russian contacts. I had the chance to speak to a group of German businesswomen and businessmen the other day, and all of them have either Russian customers or employees. I said, please call them, talk to them, because there's a wall that the Kremlin has put up to make sure that the Russian population does not know what's going on, to continue the fairy tale that there's a Nazi that's in charge of Ukraine, a very Jewish Mr. Zelensky, but this is the justification for what they're doing. So how can we penetrate that? And there's a technical solution, which I believe people are working on, but there's also the personal solution. If you call, Lithuania even has a program, Call a Russian. Encourage them to call people and say, don't send your son. But I talked to a young German gentleman yesterday, a friend of ours who works for a German company that has pretty significant Russian business. I think about 15% of their business is Russian. And I asked him, I said, so would you be willing to call somebody there? And he said, no way, I would be fired by his German boss if he did that. Yeah, could be. But the option is thousands more people are going to get killed if we can't stop this. You know, I think about Srebrenica, July 1995. We had European soldiers under UN mandate stayed outside of Srebrenica while Republika Srpska forces murdered 8,000 Bosnian men and boys. And we did nothing. And then afterwards, never again, we're never going to do this again. And here we are. We're standing on the outside. We're sending equipment, we're sending ammunition, we're cheering for them, but we're standing on the outside while every day you see apartment buildings, maternity wards, culture centers getting smashed. Those are not accidental. We made accidents, for sure. These are intentional. What else should we be doing? I signed a letter with a group of other people advocating for a no-fly zone, a humanitarian no-fly zone. I did it because I was desperate. I was so frustrated at what I was seeing happening, and I thought I'd rather associate myself with this, even though I was pretty sure that the president would not support it. And I think the administration has correctly decided preserving the alliance, the unity of the alliance, is essential. I agree. I mean, every country in NATO can do anything unilaterally. The United States can give whatever we want. We could go into Ukraine. Germany could do that. Poland could have given those MiGs to the Ukrainians themselves. But keeping the alliance together is really important. The problem is, I think we have overdone it. I mean, NATO and Russia. If you combine the population, the economy, the military of all of NATO to Russia, it's this. I mean, it dwarfs them. They have nuclear weapons. And so, in the minds of many people, they're equal. They're not. I absolutely don't believe that they'll use a nuclear weapon. I don't believe it. It would, to what end? And I don't think the people around Putin will let him do it, because they're thinking about, all right, he's not going to be here forever. And so I think we have talked ourselves into a weak response. I had a friend who, he said, hey, I'm getting ready to go see the U.S. Secretary of the Navy. What should I encourage him? What should I tell him that the Navy ought to support? And I said, here's 5 things that the Ukrainians need to help defeat the Russian Navy. We've got a Russian Navy ship in the Black Sea firing cruise missiles into Mariupol, just bombing. And I said, well, how about these 5 things? He came back to me 2 days later, and I said, well, how was it? And he said, the Secretary appreciated that, but right now they're only considering non-escalatory measures. That's non-escalatory. I mean, what else? What else can the Russians do beyond what they're already doing? I disagree with the White House about not letting the Ukrainians have these MiGs from Poland. I mean, what's the difference between giving them hundreds of Javelin, Stinger, S-300s, all kinds of other weapons, but not old MiGs? What is the difference? And I think the White House has overcorrected from lessons learned from Afghanistan, from our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think there's overcorrected. And I think, and by the way, I am an old retired guy. I have zero responsibility except to keep Alex happy. About 50% or so. I have zero authority. So I can recommend all kind of things. The president has it all on his shoulders. So I get that, but I think we're going to regret that we didn't do more somehow. At least something like the Berlin airlift. I mean, it should be nonstop, day and night, pushing everything that they need, giving it to them. I met President Zelensky 6 weeks ago in Kyiv. Very impressive. I mean, the guy is really impressive. He's not a career politician, so he doesn't speak like a career politician. That guy is smart. He's very fit, and he impressed me as a dynamic speaker. I had no idea he would do so well as a wartime president. I mean, that's really been something. He said, look, I don't need American soldiers here. Just give us the tools so we can defend ourselves. That's all I want. We will do it. Just let me have what we need to defend ourselves. That's somebody that I would like to support. And I think we got to do a little bit more. I hope this week when the president and all of and Chancellor Scholz and President Macron and Prime Minister Johnson and President Duda, all of them get together, they say, we are the arsenal of democracy. This is about democracy versus autocracy. This is not just about Ukraine. This is about all of us. And if we're not willing to pay a little bit more at the gas pump, if we're not willing to turn down the heat a little bit, if we're not willing to give up some things, and I'm talking about my country as well, how can we say, we're all for democracy? You go to the preamble to the Washington Treaty, which created NATO, and it's all about values. It's what we all say we're for. And now is the time that we have to deliver. I don't want to go through another 20 years of never again. No, we always say that, but we're about to do it again if we don't really step forward and take the lead. Germany, everybody in Europe follows Germany. I mean, when Germany steps up, people say, oh, now we got to do it. That's the leadership that you have, the respect that people have. Even if they don't like you sometimes, they respect. They respect. And so here's the time for Germany to step up, and I hope that the Bundestag will support Chancellor Scholz. The whole German people will support Chancellor Scholz. And the last thing I would say at 30 and a half minutes, if you have a son or a daughter, a young woman, a young man that goes into the Bundeswehr, it's a moral responsibility, it seems to me, to make sure that that young woman or that young man has the best possible equipment to survive and to accomplish the Auftrag that they've been given, mandated by the Bundestag. I mean, it's just kind of cool. I think you're the only country where the military cannot do anything without a mandate from the Bundestag. So if the Bundestag says, okay, you're going to Mali, wherever, and they don't give you the best possible equipment to make sure they survive and can accomplish it, I think this is a moral responsibility. This is not about 2%. This is about making sure that the young soldiers that you send can do what you send them to do, and then come back. All right, we're going to win. Democracy is going to win. There's no reason we should lose unless we don't try. And then we would deserve to lose. I am starving, Clemens. You made these people wait so long to eat dinner. All right, so I think we should. I am happy. He did say we could do about 15 minutes of questions now, okay, and then after eating, I will stick around for as long as anybody wants. So I am happy to take questions or challenges or disagreements. We have about 15 minutes now. Yes, sir.